What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Fantasy Football Over Analysis. Today we're talking about the Tennessee Titans, their fantasy relevant players, and whether or not we are targeting or fading them in our drafts this summer. At quarterback, Cam Ward finished his rookie season as the QB 22 overall, throwing for just over 3,000 yards and 15 touchdowns. It's hard to take a lot away from Cam Ward's rookie season. The situation was not great there. Brian Callahan was a disaster as a head coach. It really makes you wonder why the Titans even bothered bringing him back just to coach the number one overall pick for not even half a season before firing him. So Ward deals with a bad coaching situation. He deals with a coaching change midway through the year. He also did not have the best supporting cast. Calvin Ridley was his top receiver on paper, barely played last year. Alec Manor, Chimere DK, not great options at the receiver position. So all those factors mixed together, and at the end of the day, you get an uninspiring rookie season from Cam Ward. Now, this year the Titans, they make the change to Robert Saleh as the new head coach, but more importantly for Ward, they bring in Brian Daboll as the offensive coordinator. Daboll, who's had a history with Josh Allen and last year Jackson Dart in New York. So the hope here is that Daboll can help Ward take a step forward in his development. Now, will that translate into good fantasy performances this year? I don't know. Cam Ward is certainly reasonable for where you have to get him in drafts. He's completely free. He's probably even going to go undrafted in a decent amount of leagues. But I don't know that I'd even want Cam Ward as a QB2. I think I have to see something from Cam Ward before I even consider him as a streamer, let alone a guy that I want to keep on my roster in anything other than two quarterback or super flex formats. And this Ward thing could go in a lot of different directions. There is an outcome where he turns out to be a pretty decent streaming option this year in Daboll's offense with Carnell Tate as his new number one wide receiver. But there's also an outcome where he flops completely. And already there have been reports that he's struggling in OTAs and minicamp. And if he's not able to develop in year two at all, there's a chance that a year from now the Titans are just completely revisiting the quarterback position again in a loaded 2027 draft class. At running back, it's so hard to get excited about Tony Pollard. Even with the improvements that the Titans might be making schematically and personnel-wise, what you see is what you get with Tony Pollard. And it's an uninspiring low-end RB2. Yes, volume is on his side, but volume's been on his side for a couple of years now, and he just hasn't done much with it. Pollard last year produced just 2 spiked weeks, 2 games above 20 fantasy points in full PPR. It was a struggle for him to get to 15 most weeks. So with Pollard, you're talking about someone that's just the ultimate floor play. You can put Pollard in your lineup on any given week, and he'll slog his way to double-digit fantasy points, but the Titans are still expected to be a bad offense. And bad offenses that struggle to score points, struggle to score touchdowns, it's going to lead to what you've gotten with Pollard the last couple of years. And Pollard has capped out at 6 touchdowns in his first 2 seasons with the Titans. I honestly think that what you want for Pollard in a best-case scenario is a trade. Keep in mind, Pollard is in the final year of the 3-year deal he signed with the Titans. Titans, again, expected to be a bad team. We get to the trade deadline. They're already buried in the standings. There's a chance that, especially if one of these other contending teams suffers an injury at some point, somebody comes calling for Pollard. And at that point, you might have a real value on your hands if he gets out of the Titans and into a more fantasy-friendly environment. But the reality of that is we can't live in a world where we're projecting or expecting trades. That's just not a good way to build a fantasy roster. So for me, Tony Pollard is just going to be a fade. I mean, yes, you can take him as a low-end RB3 or RB4, but I feel like in the range that he's going, there's just so much more upside at other positions that I'd take in a heartbeat over him. Also, we don't need to go anywhere near Tyjae Spears, and this is a guy that the fantasy community wanted so badly to be a thing over the last few years, and it just isn't going to happen. Spears, when he's not hurt, even when he's been out there, it's been mediocre. And as for Nick Singleton, you don't need to go near him either. Singleton, his path to playing, like, he needs Pollard and Spears to both get out of the way, which is possible. He could be somebody that you're going after on the waiver wire later in the season, but at this point, he's only a back end bench stash in much deeper leagues. At wide receiver, the Titans knew that they couldn't run it back with the wide receivers that they had last year. Your Ridleys, your Iomanners, DK. That just wasn't going to cut it for Cam Ward year two. So they did a lot at the position. They went out and drafted Carnell Tate in the first round, and they signed Wan'Dale Robinson, who played with Brian Daboll in New York, to a free agent contract. For Tate, we love that he has a first-round pick invested in him. Generally, first-round picks at wide receiver are good investments to make in fantasy football, especially now that the community has kind of come down a bit from where we were a few years ago when Marvin Harrison was just insanely overpriced going at the 1-2 turn in his rookie year. Ever since that disaster, the price on the rookie wide receivers has come crashing back down into a much more reasonable range. So Carnell Tate you can get in round 6 of your drafts. And I don't hate that price for Tate, but given the questions that I have regarding Cam Ward, I think I'd rather go a little earlier on some other options out there. Like I'd take a chance on a Brian Thomas rebound before I draft Carnell Tate in round 6. I'd go Jordan Tyson in New Orleans because I think the offensive environment there with Kellen Moore is going to be better than what the Titans are going to have. And it's the same thing with Wan'Dale Robinson. Wan'Dale right now is going in round 8, and you know he's going to fit what the Titans are going to do schematically, but what this comes down to is I'd rather be going after offenses that I know are going to be good rather than taking a chance that the Titans are going to hit their best case scenario. And really with these two, it comes down to if you draft either one of these receivers, you're essentially making a bet on Cam Ward. And if you don't feel comfortable with Cam Ward, with where he is, with where you think he's going, then you should be fading these two wide receivers. So while I don't have a lot of interest in the Titans, Cam Ward, and their skill position pieces, I do have some interest in Gunnar Helm as a late round tight end option. Helm is the favorite to step into the tight end role now that Chigakonkwo is in Washington. And there's not a lot of competition for him there. And if he's able to develop a rapport with Ward or just get the trust of the coaching staff, then he's got a path where he could potentially come away as, at worst, the third option on this offense, potentially even the second best. Maybe there's a red zone role there for him. But Helm is a guy that if you're trying to mix and match two late round tight end options, he should definitely be on your radar for that. That's going to do it for this one, guys. So with the Titans, this is another one of those teams that falls into that very bottom tier category where it's a struggling, rebuilding franchise that is going to have a lot of trouble, even putting up 20 points a game. And when you know the environment is such that the offense isn't going to be scoring a lot of touchdowns, that's not something that you want to chase in fantasy. And even like the younger skill position guys like Carnell Tate, I can't see myself feeling good about investing a mid-round pick in them when I could pursue other options from better offenses that are going to be scoring a lot more points. But I thank you guys so much for watching, and we will talk to you guys next time when we go over the Kansas City Chiefs.